I feel like these days we do two things. One is we look outside of us for information on the best parenting models or the best way to respond to this. And we try to fit into these molds. And what it does is it keeps us from trusting our own ability to respond to the situation in the right way. Because every child is so different. There's no book that's going to tell you exactly how to respond to your child in a way that's right. And I feel like what our culture needs is for mothers to be reminded that you know how to raise your child. And I feel like that's something that like our ancient cultures had, so they didn't second guess themselves so much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Purple Stars podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host, and today's guest is a certified Ayurveda health and counselor and educator. She's helping countless people around the world on their transformation and healing journeys. She's an author. She's also the founder of an amazing community that is called Soul Space. Above all, she is a woman that is soulful, that has a big heart, and I am thrilled to have her on our show today. Please welcome Dhyana Masla.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. So grateful to be with you and your community.
I came across you on Instagram and instantly I thought, I want to have this woman on our show. So I was so excited when you got back to us saying you have time to come on. And I got even more excited when I did a deep dive into your journey, into your background, into like extra posts, reading it. And my team got really excited also throughout the research. So for all the people in our audience that don't know you yet, could you share a little bit your journey that led you to becoming the brilliant woman you are today, and also what made you draw towards Ayurveda on your journey?
Thank you for seeing me in that light. It's very empowering. I was raised in an amazing family. My mother and father are both practicing yogis, and so they're living the path of bhakti yoga. My father is a naturopathic doctor, an Ayurvedic practitioner, and so we were raised with a lot of the holistic ways of living and healing. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, my father opened a retreat center called the Ayurveda Health Retreat. And by the time I was 15, I was taught all of the healing modalities that he teaches there and that he offers there. And people come and they stay 3 days, 5 days, a month, and they receive these different treatments. And they live an Ayurvedic lifestyle. They practice yoga, they do breath work, they eat food that is balancing for their body and mind. And they dive into the deeper practices of meditation. And people come for all reasons. They come just for R&R, rest and relaxation. They come for deep healing, whether it's of the mind, the body, if they're going through a breakup or the loss of somebody that they love. It's like whatever dis-ease, wherever in life there's not ease. That's how I view disease. They come for so many reasons. And I would just see time and time again that people would heal, that healing would happen in this space. And so I went to college, I studied yoga and psychology. I moved to New York City, and my sister and I opened 2 yoga studios there. And while I was there, I studied Ayurveda more deeply, and I really started to feel that this is my offering to the world. It's really a way of perceiving reality in a whole way that allows us to become more whole and more healed. And so since then, I have my 2 beautiful babies. We now live in Florida where my dad's center is. And so my sister and I are taking over the center. And that led me to writing my book, Ayurveda Mama, just having my 2 babies here and just seeing how Ayurveda can really, really support women in that the rite of passage, the type of change that changes everything. How can Ayurveda support me in that process? And here I am.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I have this deep belief that our souls pick our parents. And in your case, I mean, how beautiful is it that they so obviously gave you your gifts and like already repped you from a very early age on in that blanket of purpose and mindfulness and love, and you didn't really have to look for it, like, travel far, but it was very near. Like, how does this make you feel when you reflect on that?
Yeah, I mean, so many things come to my mind, though one thing that I do want to give voice to is oftentimes people, like if I just tell my story in a nutshell, that's, 35 years in 2 minutes.
Mm.
It's like, wow, it's so perfect. Wow, she's so lucky. And yes, totally. I feel so unbelievably blessed to have the life that I have and the family that I have. And also, my parents were divorced when I was two. And there were challenges throughout. And I didn't always love and embrace Ayurveda. When I was a teenager, I was wild and rebellious and wanted to see what does the real world have out there. So I wasn't always living and breathing Ayurveda. And I feel like that's an important piece of the story that will help other people be able to relate. Because it's not that I've just been in this perfect bubble of yoga and Ayurveda. And also, what you just said, yes, absolutely. I feel like we choose our parents because, I mean, Ayurveda, a fundamental foundational teaching of Ayurveda is that every experience is medicine, that every moment
Mm.
is the perfect experience that we need in order to grow and evolve, no matter how beautiful it is. When it's beautiful, it's easy to feel, wow, life is amazing. There is a God. But it's usually in those more challenging moments where we really get asked, can I trust that now? Can I feel that even it's like the bitter medicine that this is really, really hard and I don't like what this feels like. And somehow it's perfect. It's what I'm meant to be experiencing. It's what I'm meant to be feeling to deepen me and to grow me, to evolve me even more. And so, yeah, the beauty, but also the hard times. It's all medicine. It's all important.
Every experience is medicine. I want to repeat that just for people to let it sink in, because that's so good. I
Hmm.
love that you see every experience is medicine, and some experience are bitter medicine. It's a
Yeah.
very beautiful way of seeing it. I put it in my own words. I love to say life is my friend. So this
Mm.
is my main mantra. And that doesn't mean that life always is beautiful and sunshine and like things are great. And I wake up and I'm excited and then I go to bed very happy and grateful.
Yeah.
It means the more I deepen my relationship with life, and everyone has different ways of doing it, the more life can take care of me. And
Beautiful.
also having that belief when I'm going through a storm that life has my back.
Yeah.
And life equips me with the tools and also sends me along the right people. Sometimes it might also be a book, it might be a reel, it might be a podcast, a song, a sign, a butterfly, whatever it is. But I'm a true believer life is our friend when we allow it to be our friend.
Hmm.
And I love the way you put it in your own words that every experience is medicine and some are bitter. And also, thank you for pointing out that in a nutshell, it looks like they're like in hindsight, maybe better said, in hindsight, your journey makes totally sense. But if we zoom in to certain parts of your life, it didn't feel that aligned, and it wasn't always like, oh, the dots totally made sense. And the reason why I want to repeat that is because oftentimes people think they are not on their path because they have a certain idea what the path should look like. And they feel, oh, I'm born. And then at the age of 3, I feel drawn to the piano. I want to be a pianist. And it's always been like that. And of course, for some people, it is like that. But for a lot of people, it can look very differently. And I think in the end, what is purpose? It means feeling alive and
Totally.
doing what makes us feel alive. And part
Yes.
of that is exploring and being rebellious, whatever you did in your teenage years. And, and being rebellious and exploring and being curious about life also looks different in different times of lives. And one big thing for you has also been writing your fantastic book, Ayurveda Mama. Can you please share what it is about for those who haven't had the chance to read it yet? And also, what is an Ayurveda mama?
Mm. So Ayurveda Mama, it's a book that guides a woman through the process of conscious conception, thriving, deepening pregnancy, understanding that once this little soul is in your womb, every emotion that mama experiences, every experience that she has, that's also the baby's first embodied experience. And so it matters. And so, how to really nourish and uplift mama so that she nourishes and uplifts her little one from the earliest stages of childhood. And even modern science is showing that those experiences matter. Epigenetically, our experiences are passed on to our children in their womb. And so it really, really matters how mama is doing during that time, and also how to have an empowering birth experience in a way that mama really knows I was born for this. So many women are so, I was so
Mm,
afraid of birth. I always wanted to be a mom, but I was like, I wish I just didn't have to experience labor and birth because all I heard about it was how intense it was. Now I look so forward to if I can have that experience again of birthing my child because it is one of the most beautiful and profound and empowering experiences that a woman can go through. And then postpartum, Ayurveda teaches so much about postpartum, where these days, oftentimes in our culture, we hear about postpartum and we hear things like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum hair loss, postpartum overwhelm. It's like all the imbalances that people have postpartum. That's what we've come to know as postpartum. And I oftentimes say that nature didn't put us through the most powerful rite of passage that a woman can go through only to suffer. That's not how nature designed for it to
mhm,
be. There's a better way. And in my experience, and in the experience of so many women in so many different cultures, there's a really powerful, nourishing way to honor this transition into becoming a mother. Again, like I said earlier, it's the type of life change that changes everything. Like not only does your body change, your whole identity changes, your relationship changes, your role in society changes, everything changes in that moment that you birth your baby. And so how to really support and nourish mama during that transitional period so that she can feel more empowered, more aligned, more alive than she ever has in her life, and that's how it's meant to be. That this portal is meant to initiate us into the next version of ourselves, and it's meant to be more beautiful and deeper and more profound than ever. And so that this book really holds mama in that way as well. And what is an Ayurveda mama? An Ayurveda is, mama is somebody who, it's a mother who is wanting to live more consciously, who is wanting to do the
mhm,
deep inner work necessary to heal not only what I'm holding in my body, but what has been passed down to me through generations. And because of that, I want to choose, not just, we're so often in life, I'm just reacting, I'm just like something happens and I react to it. So many people in this world, we're just going through life on autopilot. We wake up at a certain time, we drink our coffee, we do this. It's just like, we're just like done, done, just like living robotically. There's no life in our life. And so Ayurveda, I feel like the foundation, one of the foundational teachings is how to begin to listen. Like what is true right
mm,
now? What do I need right now? What would support me in thriving right now? It's like the art of listening, of actually being in our life in a deep enough way so that there's a communication, that there's a dialogue, there's a relationship with life. And so, especially as children come, it's like we're asked to do that deep inner work when we get triggered by our child or when something arises where it's not what we wanted it to be. And I can act the way that maybe my mother acted because that's how I'm programmed to act, whether it's yelling or hitting or whatever patterns that have been passed down to us. But as an Ayurveda mama, a conscious mama, we were like, wait a minute. I notice there's a lot of frustration in my body. I notice every part of me wants to scream right now. How can I pull
mm,
in my resources and instead decide how do I want to be? in this moment? What do I want to pass on to my child? And we don't always get it perfectly, but all it is to be an Ayurveda mama is that that's what we want, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be better for ourselves and for our children so that we can heal generations. Generations.
I I'm very grateful you brought up heal generations
Mm,
because and you already said like when the baby's in our womb, and I think it's already starting at the conception, is our baby feels everything, and not just what we're experiencing in that moment, but also the generational traumas and generational experiences, emotions, but also strengths that we are carrying within us from our parents, grandparents, and ancestors and all the generations back.
yeah.
How does someone that is starting with all of this, what's the very first step? Because I can imagine it's, like being pregnant might also already be as beautiful as it is, maybe overwhelming. And then like on top of that, having that inner work, where does someone start?
The first step is simply paying attention. It's very simple.
Mm.
It's like so often we're in our experience and we just become it. It's like it becomes us. We're angry and that's just what it is. Or we're feeling whatever it is that arises, it's like it just becomes us. And so the first step would be noticing, like, wow, like I'm starting to feel a lot of frustration, or wow, I'm noticing there's a lot of anxiety inside of me. And so it's noticing what's there with a little bit of space. There's like a gap between who I am and my experience right now. So that's the first step, just
Mm.
beginning to create the gap between stimulus and response. That's the first step.
I think that's something that for anyone who is listening, whether there are mothers already want to be mothers, or mothers of pets, or maybe even mothers to businesses because they're birthing ideas and inspirations, or they're authors and artists, because I think we're all mothers to someone or something. And I love what you said about acknowledging and paying attention, because it is the very first step to be present with ourselves. And then we can offer that gift also to others. And I love what you shared online. You said motherhood is a profound rite of passage into the next version of yourself. We lose ourselves because the old ways don't work in this new life. And we are being asked to upgrade consciously. And I love that you describe motherhood as a transformation process that requires us to upgrade consciously. Can we elaborate, please, more on the aspect of upgrading consciously, or what parts might call us to upgrade consciously? And how can we do that without feeling this big pressure of doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like I said a little earlier, is in the postpartum window, everything is changed. And I feel like we experience that in other ways in our life too. If it's the loss of a loved one, it's like suddenly, it's like one thing changed, but everything changed. You feel like the whole world looks different and feels different. Even
Mm,
in a big move, we just moved houses. And it felt like I had to find myself again because I felt disoriented. How do I orient myself in my new life? And so postpartum, it's one of those changes where, again, everything has changed. And how do I find myself in this brand new world, is what it can feel like oftentimes for mothers. It's like, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know like what my dynamic in my relationship is going to be. Even all of our organs, moved to accommodate baby, and now baby's gone. There's so much space inside of our bodies for our organs to again come back. And so in Ayurveda, that's a teaching, is that everything's gonna come back and we're gonna find our way. And so oftentimes in our culture, we see this like bounce back culture. It's like, oh wow, she's working out 3 days postpartum. That's amazing. It's like they're out at the coffee shop with their 6 day old baby. Wow, that's amazing. It's like we want things to go back to normal because this in between feeling can be so uncomfortable. It can be so disorienting. And so there's this idea that like just get things to go back to normal. Get things to go back to normal, where Ayurveda says, slow down, honor this time
Mm.
of change. Let it change you. Let it change you. Don't just try to go back to anything because there's no going back. There's only going forward. And to use that time of is like, wow, it's like a blank canvas. What do I want for my relationship with my partner now that everything's different? What do I want, in my relationship with my body now that everything's different? What do I want in my vision of life now that everything's different? And so it's utilizing that time in any big transition. It's said that in any big transition, we need to eat more simply so that our body doesn't have to work so hard to digest, so that we have
Mhm.
the capacity to actually hold a greater vision for what do we want now. And so to use that time to create intentionally, to tap into what do I want and what is meant to be? How am I becoming now that everything's different?
It's so interesting what you said about the blank canvas because I totally agree. Often we are wired to run from A to B, and there is no waiting and pausing time in between. And either we want to run back to A, like what's so called normal,
Yeah.
or we want to run already what's new. And when I'm in a phase of transition or waiting, or if I'm in a waiting room, I meditate on being in the room that is empty. And even if I feel the need to get all the new furniture and like all the decoration and all the pictures up there to have it done, I just allow myself to be in that room
Yeah.
and allow myself to have the room to look within. And what you said, asking myself, how do I want this new chapter of my life to feel? How do I want to show up for myself? And I love what you also said, redefining how's my relationship with my partner if there's a big change, or how also with my body, because
Mhm.
I'm not yet a mother to a child, but I know from a lot of friends of mine, the body is just it's never the same again. And I mean, it's never the same for anyone, but I think particularly when you gave birth to a child. And it's so important to allow ourselves to build new relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because it's not meant to be the same. And I think that's something that so many women
Mm-hmm.
need to hear is that it's meant to be different and it's better. It's better because that's how it is now. And to take that time, like you said, and that it's uncomfortable, like waiting in a waiting room, an empty waiting room can be really uncomfortable. We
Mm-hmm.
might want to pick up our phone, distract ourselves. That's what our culture does. We're so good at distracting ourselves from feeling uncomfortable. Any moment of
Mm-hmm.
loneliness, any moment of anxiety, it's like we have our phone, we have, whatever for some people it's sex, for some people it's food. These things aren't good or bad, but it's how are we using them? And oftentimes we're using them to distract us from feeling something that's uncomfortable. And so, especially in this early phase of motherhood, to practice, I mean, it's hard. I've had two postpartums already, and both times I stayed in my home for 42 days and in my backyard. I didn't go out because I knew that something powerful and important is happening here. And I want to go out. I want things to be back to normal, but I know that this is important. And so
Mm.
to be able to sit with discomfort trains us for when we have toddlers or older kids or even teenagers and it's not comfortable. We might want to run or, again, like I said earlier, scream or react in some way that doesn't actually serve. And so it's oftentimes, what do I want most? Instead of like, what do I want just right now? Oftentimes it's like, what do I need right
Hmm.
now? What do I want right now to be comfortable? It's like, no, what do I want most? I want a harmonious transition into this next season of my life. And with every child, there's a new season of life because everything changes with every single one. So it's not just the first time either of becoming a mother that everything changes.
I want to repeat, it's supposed to be different. That is so good to remember. It's supposed to be different because I think when we deeply ingrain that truth about life, it's supposed to be different. Therefore, I'm supposed to be different. My thoughts, my
Mhm.
feelings, my body. It's much easier. I'm not saying easy, but it's much easier to transition because we are not fighting something that's never going to happen. And
Mm.
I'm wondering, how can Ayurveda support us, is particularly in times of transition, whether it's becoming a mother or, as you said, moving into a different home. There are so many transitions in life. How can it support us? And also, how can we prepare ourselves for those transitions? Because I'm thinking, pregnancy, for example, whatever pregnancy it is, to a child or to a business, it is, months and months and months till we give birth.
Yeah,
Like, how can we already use that pregnancy time to actually consciously prepare ourselves for the transition and not suddenly be overwhelmed with all the questions? Because I think there are like quite a few weeks and months where we can reflect on that.
totally. Yeah, well, it's a big question. And so I'll speak first to transitional times in our life. And Ayurveda shares a lot about how to prepare for transitions. And so, in the language of Ayurveda, any change, any transformation, it's ruled by vata, which is the air and the ether elements. There's so much movement, there's so much activity. It can feel really ungrounding, which can cause feelings like anxiety or fear. It can create dryness in the body, even constipation, because our body's tightening up because there's so much unknown. And so the medicine for vata, or the medicine for fear or anxiety, or any kind of change that happens in our life, there's a few words, like key words, that I focus on. And it's all around nourishment. And so with your diet and lifestyle, you want to focus on warmth, groundedness, oiliness, yeah, more stability. And so with the food that you eat, warm, cooked, grounding foods like maybe root vegetables, more grains, really well cooked, just soft and mushy. With your lifestyle, move more slowly. Don't be sporadically moving from this thing to that thing, and I have to do this and that and the other thing, because that just increases that vata movement, activity, energy. In Ayurveda, the simple equation is like increases like. And so if I'm cold and I
Mhm.
drink cold water, I'm going to get colder. And then opposites balance. If I'm cold and I drink warm water, I'm going to balance myself out. And so if we increase activity and motion in a time where there's already so much change, we're going to experience more anxiety, more fear, more feelings of loneliness or disconnection. Whereas if we ground and nourish and find rhythms in our life that are supportive and simple, like simplicity is so important in times of change. Keep it simple. Keep your meals simple. Keep your outings simple. And then self care practices, like a really beautiful one that I practice during any time of transition really regularly, is Abhyanga, which is massage with warm oil. And so those are, again, two of the words, warm and oily. And so massaging myself is so grounding, it's so nourishing, it's coating my nervous system, which is so easily stimulated if my vata is high. And so, in any time of transition, and these are also practices before baby comes, to prepare your mind and prepare your body for a big change where you know vata is going to be high. That means before baby comes, to become more grounded, more nourished, feel more supported, and also prepare for your postpartum window to have those same qualities: warmth, nourishment, support, stability. So those are some of the main things around big transitions.
I personally also love to practice simplicity in foods when anything is complex out there or is overwhelming, or even when there are ideas that need a lot of thought, or if a lot is happening on the outside that I need to digest, then I really try, as you said, have simple cooked meals. So at least my body doesn't need to do the same amount of work as my mind or my heart and my soul. And I had once a very great tip, which is when we travel a lot, which also is a certain transition,
Yeah.
to have root vegetables at the location, like grown at the location, ideally, that we are traveling to, because that
Beautiful.
helps us to ground into it. And I thought, yeah, that totally makes sense. And uh, the first time when I moved away from home, I even took potatoes from home.
Oh,
Because I wanted to, I was very young and I thought, okay, how can I help? Because that was also a big transition and I was giving birth to my adulthood in that
yeah.
phase of life.
Mhm.
So my mom gave me all these like potatoes and stuff. And I think it's so good to have this warmth within ourselves and to also nourish our digestion fire inside ourselves, because whenever we eat something cold or drink something cold, I mean, what's happening to a fire when you put in water that's cold? So I think that's a good way of putting it. And I also want to add a little thing to what you said about moving, like running around from A to B. I also apply this to working out.
Mm.
So, whenever we are in phases of transitions or higher stress, it's so important, and I tell this to all my clients, it's so important to counterbalance with slow movement.
Yeah.
Because when our mind is already at like a pace of 150 miles an hour, and then like we are running and boxing and doing ice bath and all these things, like we go to a 200 miles per hour. While as if we're doing yin yoga or sun salutations,
Mhm.
anything that's slower, and then ending with, like, as you said, with some warm oil massage, we are counterbalancing it. And of course, there are seasons in life where we need to run in order to get our fire going again. So it's important to tune in and to see where does my yin need the yang, or the yang the yin, to put it in Chinese medicine words. So
Yeah.
I love what you said about the oily, the warm, and the cooked. And can you please talk a little bit about soul space for people that want to dive deeper into Ayurveda and daily routines that can help them, not just as mothers, but in general with life?
Yeah. Yeah, we have an amazing mamas group in Soul Space as well, which is really special. But Soul Space, it's an online community that's focused in yoga, Ayurveda, and joyful living that my sister and I co-founded together. And we have live classes. We have 2 live yoga classes a week, 4 live meditations. We have different courses, whether it's the yogic art of living and dying, the yoga of relationships. Really practical. We're having a kirtan course coming up, the wisdom of the 4 directions coming up. And so, teachers that we are inspired by, that we want to learn from, we invite them in to take us all deeper in our experiences. Those are live, but they're also, everything is archived. And so already there's a library of hundreds of classes that at any moment, if anybody wants to do yoga, meditation, breath work, we have classes called soul sessions. We have regular Bhagavad Gita study or sacred wisdom studies. It's a beautiful community of people from all over the world. And it's a space that, it's amazing. I mean, when I wake up early, my dad leads the meditations in the mornings. And it's so nice to be able to sit in circle with people from all over the world to do our practice together. Because I know
Mhm.
anybody that meditates, to do it myself, I can get so easily distracted by something that needs to be done around the house, or my mind just starts to wander. But there's something about practicing in community, that accountability, that makes it actually easier to drop in and deepen into our life. And so we know that, so much of our trauma has come from relationships, and so much of our healing will also come through relationships. And so we created this online space to make it easy to connect to deeper wisdom, to simple yet profound practices, and to amazing like-minded people all over the world, so that we feel like we don't have to do this alone. And suddenly our spiritual life, or our deeper inner life, it's not this far away thing that one day I'll get to, but it's something that's really alive in every day of our life.
Who would you say is this space for?
I mean, it's really for anyone, but I feel like if we were going to hone in, it's people that want accountability with their practice, that feel like they want to meditate, or they want to start doing yoga, or they want to learn more about living a life in harmony, or a connected life, but somehow they don't find the time or the way to do it,
Hmm.
to do it on their own. And so people who want support, accountability, and also community around the things that matter most in our life. And we have women and men. We probably have, it's probably about 85% women. But we do have men. My father teaches, my husband teaches, my sister's husband teaches. And so it is a space for women and men. And we have ranging from probably 25, and our oldest member is 72. And so it's really for anyone who is wanting to come in and deepen.
I love that it goes from 20 to, over 70, because, in the end, what is connecting? We're connecting with our heart, we're connecting with our souls, we're connecting with our mind, and age really doesn't matter. And I think we can learn from anyone and anything if we are open to it. And I love that you created a space, a home, let me actually call it a home, where people can connect with themselves, connect with others, and where they get an amazing inspiration and support for their transformation and healing journey. And you shared on Instagram that the real work of a mama is the inner work.
Mhm.
So that's why I think it's so fitting what you just explained, that you're offering an entire home where inner work meets support and inspiration. And can we explore a little bit the inner work for mothers more? We already did, but I want to particularly go into the mom guilt,
Mm,
because with so many mothers, I've had conversations, whether it's mothers to children, mothers to pets, mothers to businesses, there comes this mom guilt. Mom guilt of, and especially, oh, I wish I would do more.
mm,
It's never, I wish I would do less. It's always more, 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 more.
yeah.
How can Ayurveda support us to drop into the knowing that whatever we're already doing is enough? And also finding that sweet spot of embracing who we are now, whilst also holding space for the wounds that still need healing.
Yeah. Well, such a good question. Hmm. I feel like so much initially is around trusting in who we are, and that we know how to mother our children better than any book or any podcaster or anybody else knows. I feel like these days we do two things. One is we look outside of us for information on the best parenting models or the best way to respond to this, and we try to fit into these molds. And what it does is it keeps us from trusting our own ability to respond to the situation in the right way, because every child is so different. There's no book that's going to tell you exactly how to respond to your child in a way that's right. And I feel like what our culture needs is for mothers to be reminded that you know how to raise your
Mm-hmm.
child. And I feel like that's something that like our ancient cultures had, so they didn't second guess themselves so much. But now, because there's so much information, so many influencers, so many books, it's like we're constantly second guessing ourselves, which makes us feel like, oh, I did that wrong, which is where guilt comes in. I should have done it differently. I did it wrong. I did it. And then I feel bad about myself or what I did because I think it was wrong. And so I think first and foremost, there's that piece where we need to take our power back and knowing that I know how to mother my child and how I create boundaries and how I respond. That's exactly the way that my child needs boundaries and responsiveness. Um, because you are the mother of your child, and there's a reason for that. And so the first thing is just to stop looking outside of ourselves so much for how to parent my own child. And that will help us feel more empowered in the ways that we choose to respond. And then the second piece is we're so quick to blame the world outside of me for my suffering, whether it's my boss or my boyfriend or my husband or my sister. They did something, so I'm struggling or I'm suffering or I'm angry. It's because it's raining, I'm feeling sad, or because it's sunny, I'm feeling happy. And so we basically give the external world the power to dictate our inner experience, which yoga and Ayurveda say, wait a minute, like the world outside of you is always changing. It's unpredictable. And if you're letting the outside world dictate your inner experience, you've got it all wrong. Outside world
Mm-hmm.
happens. It rains, it's sunny, your child, spills a glass of milk on the floor. The outside world happens. Our response to it is our responsibility. And so much of the work of a mother is not blaming our children for our inner experience. It's so easy to say, I'm frustrated because you won't go to sleep. And I've been trying to put you to bed for 2 hours, because you spilled the milk on the floor, because you're not listening. I'm angry. But the reality is, it's not them. Like, yes, there can be
Mm-hmm.
boundaries around certain things that will help support them in being a certain way. And also, my experience is my responsibility. My anger is not because of you, it's because something is coming up in me that I need to feel, that I need to face. But what oftentimes happens, I just did a whole reel on this, is that you're acting in a certain way. I'm feeling something. I'm blaming you, and then I yell or I react or I respond in a way that's not actually supportive to the situation. And again,
Mm.
we're not going to be perfect. Almost every mother I know has these experiences of whether it's mother rage or mom guilt or these terms that have been coined because they are so popular to experience. Um, we're not going to be perfect, but again, we have to keep refining and noticing when I'm feeling like I need space, but I don't have any. Like, it's not your fault. It's just a need that I have. And how can I meet my needs in a supportive way? And so, how can I nourish myself more? Ultimately, is what it comes down to. Like when my children are sleeping, rather than watching a movie or going on Instagram, like maybe I need to take a bath and give myself an oil massage. Or maybe, like, if I'm feeling a lot of energy in my body and I notice I'm getting angry and I'm more short and snappy, like I need to rage, like I need to dance, I need to turn up music and like move that energy in my body so I don't burn the people that I love the most. And so we have to find ways to not make these experiences bad or wrong. Like, it's bad that I feel angry or it's bad that I feel guilty. It's like, no, like we talked about in the beginning, there's always medicine here. Like, guilt
Mm-hmm.
might be telling us that I acted out of line. Like, it might be saying, like, hey, like you responded in a way that's not actually in integrity with what you believe. Like, maybe that's what it's saying. Or maybe it's just some old baggage of like, you always are feeling bad because your mom made you feel bad when you were a child about everything that you did. And so there's medicine there, there's lessons there. And every time it's going to be different. Like, anger, frustration, it's not bad. If we're burning the people we love with it, yes, it's bad. But if it's telling us like there's a way that I'm living my life that's not in integrity, like I need more
Mm-hmm.
support, I need more free time, I need more wildness. Like, what do I need? Like, what is this emotion telling me? And so, again, there's always medicine, there's always lessons there. And it takes, again, that space that we were talking about to be able to reflect on the experience in a way that helps us grow and then do better next time. That's all we can do. Do better. Apologize if you've burnt somebody, and then do better next time. That's the best we can do.
It's so great what you said, when we feel the need for more space. And I think very often when our emotions take over, it's a sign we need more space, even if it's for a few breaths. And often when we don't have extra time to go to a massage and acupuncture and like a long yoga class, what I love to share and also do for myself is whatever I'm doing anyway, to do it more consciously.
Love
So
that.
whether it's brushing my teeth or showering, well, I know some mothers might not shower for 2 or 3 days because they're too tired, but or even eating, walking, like brushing my hair. So whatever I need to do anyway, I'm trying to do more consciously and a little bit slower. So rather than eating and replying to emails and doing this and doing that at the same time, I'm just trying to be, and similar to what you say, when the kids are sleeping, even if we feel, oh, we want to connect on Instagram and watch a movie, it might be the best for yourself plus the child and your partner that you are taking a bath and just listen to some relaxing music.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's the biggest gift we can share to others, right? And share with others is to make the most of the time that we have, even if it's just a single minute per day.
Totally. Yeah, I love what you said about it's like whatever you're doing, just doing it more consciously because then you can actually be nourished by it. But if we're just like eating, it's like the food is feeding our body, but it's not actually, we're not enjoying it. It's not bringing us the
Yeah.
pleasure that it could be. And it's really that pleasure that feels nourishing. It makes us feel more alive. And so I love that tip that you brought.
And I want to repeat once more what you said about taking responsibility for our reactions. And that comes back to what we talked earlier. It's about all the inner work and taking the time, not having the time, taking the time to reflect and also embracing that as medicine, because whenever we're triggered, there's something that can be released. That's something that can be healed, something that can be let go of. And also taking back our power. So while it is important to get inspiration from others, from experts, from our own mothers, from podcasters and authors and whoever out there and amazing people like you and your family, at the same time, know you know best because you are the mother of your child. You're the mother of your pet, of your business. And really practice the muscle of intuition, form a relationship with it, and of course, there might be situations where we're like, man, I wish I would have done it differently. It would have been better. But nevertheless, that decision was the best because there was something to learn.
Yes. Yes. As long as we keep learning from it. And that's the journey.
Yes.
That's the journey. I also love what you said about like oftentimes when we're having a hard time, we think it's something big that we need to change. Like I need to leave this relationship or I need to move houses or go on a vacation. But oftentimes it's the simple things like drinking a glass of water or it's
Yeah.
something simple that will actually nourish us. And so, like you said, even if you don't have the time for a full yoga class, it's like we have like the few minutes where we can let ourselves be nourished by the simple things that will make us feel so much better.
I have so many more questions, but I also want to make sure to give some space to animals. Because as you know, all our listeners are animal lovers, whether they have pets themselves at home or they adore animals, watch YouTube videos, like there's just so much. And we talked a lot about connecting with our own rhythm, and having that warmth. And animals have such a natural way of honoring their cycles. In your opinion, what specific lessons can we learn from animals when it comes to following our own rhythm and nourishing ourselves in a way that is needed in that very season?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Everything that you just said is that animals are so connected to nature There's more of that. We are so heady. We're so intellectual. A teacher once said the greatest pilgrimage we could ever take is the 12 inches or so between our heads and our hearts.
Mm,
And animals are a part of nature. And naturally, because of that, they are rhythmic with sleeping and waking and even eating. You don't see animals overeating. You see that often in humans. It's like because we overthink, we intellectualize, we're disconnected from our bodies. And that's something, it's like the animal body is were just talking about the instinct, the motherly instinct
mhm,
that oftentimes as mothers we're disconnected from because we've given our power away, whether it's before birth, in the birthing experience, postpartum. I know my first labor, the whole time, like my baby wasn't coming, it was 18, 19 hours. He still wasn't here. I was at home and I was just thinking, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? I just needed somebody to tell me that I was doing this right. Where like
mhm,
animals just birth their babies. Animals just mother their young. Animals, when they're hungry, they eat. When they're tired, they sleep. It's like there's just that natural, it's like the level one Ayurveda learning to listen. It's like animals are just
mhm,
in that instinctual knowing what is needed and how to respond. They're not overthinking like we are.
mhm. Totally. And I think especially the nourishing, the sleeping, the eating, and also going through the transitions, as you said, like mothering. And my mom, funnily enough, often said that because I remember when I was younger, I sometimes said, "Mom, isn't it like so hard to give birth to a child?" I don't know. Like that was just a question I was thinking, especially in my early 20s. And my mom said, "Sarah, just look at animals. They do it all like so naturally." And often when I asked my mom, I said, "Hey, mom, I have this friend. She wanted me to ask you about like all the courses that they offer." And she said, she thinks there's just like the market is so oversaturated with so many things because she said you got to think there are some women out there that give birth without any help because it's just not possible because they're somewhere in Africa and why are they able to do it because they trust themselves in the very moment to be able to give birth to their child.
Yeah, it's natural. It's a natural process.
It's natural.
And we've
So,
medicalized so many things.
mhm,
We've given our power away in so many ways. But it's like when we're attuned with nature in a natural environment, it's like we know how to do
mhm,
so, we know how to raise our children, we know how to create boundaries, we know how to respond with love, we know how to birth our babies, we know, but we forgot that we know because somebody else knows better is what we've been told
mm.
to think.
A friend of mine once said something really beautiful. She was birthing a course, a very amazing course. And she said, "Sarah, I got very nervous, but then I remembered my entire life and every life before that prepared me for this moment."
Mm, yes, goosebumps. Yeah, it's a
And
beautiful
it's
birth
so
memory.
beautiful because and now I apply this to my own life whenever I feel nervous and I feel, oh my God, I'm not ready. I'm like, hold on, Sarah. How many lives before have you been prepared for this? And so we are born to be ready. We are
Yes.
born to be ready. And even if we might not feel ready, but we are ready and we have all the answers within. And whenever myself or a client of mine says, "Oh, but how? How can I do this and how can I do that?" Like I always say, let's do a meditation and also visualize once the bridge is there, we'll know how to cross it.
Mm, beautiful.
And very often the answers are showing up in the moment they are needed. Not
Mm,
already like 5 years before that. It's in the very moment. And also, it's because life doesn't want us to get overwhelmed every single moment. Life wants us to be free without going with the backpack of all the answers. So I think that's a very good way of putting it. Like we
I
are born
love
ready and like we have what we got, like what is needed.
Yes. Yeah, there's a song by U2, and a line that I love is what you don't have, you don't need it now. And what you don't
Yeah,
know, you feel somehow. Like I love, love, love that
that's
line.
so good.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love this. Yeah, music is such a healing medium and gift from life to us as well. But that's for a whole other episode. Dhyana, I also want to ask, do you work with spirit animals?
I don't. My husband has been much more in tune, especially we just moved on to 10 acres. And so we see the
Mm-hmm.
hawks often, and the deers are just starting to come. Um, and he is waking me up more to the messages of the animals
Mm-hmm.
as they come. Today, he was sharing how he was praying for one of his friends, and right then, the first hummingbird he's seen on our land. And our friend has a deep relationship with the hummingbirds. And so it's just like, wow, waking up more to that dynamic of, yeah,
Mm.
the spirit animals.
In German, spirit animals obviously have a different word, and it means power animal.
Mm.
So it means they give us the power we need in that very moment. And
Mm.
so when I refer to spirit animals, it can be either when we encounter an animal, whether it's on Instagram or a deer crossing our path, like literally outside, or it can also be going in deep meditation and asking our soul, who is my spirit animal? So, uh, a good friend of my mom, when I was around 12 or 13, she was, unfortunately, she already passed away, but she was a meditation teacher, and she did this meditation with me, and she guided me throughout the meditation, and just to get very deep in with my subconscious. And she said, the very first animal that comes up for you is your spirit animal, and for me it's a horse.
Mm.
However, I also must say, I'm inviting other animals to support me as well. I have an entire zoo. So when I do, like sometimes it's the butterfly for transformation, or it's an owl for the wisdom, or it might be a dolphin for freedom, or a dog for unconditional love. So I really dial into the energies and the positive characteristics of certain animals that I associate with, because I think we don't always need to know the correct, quote unquote, correct spiritual meaning and message of all the animals. It's great if we look them up, but if we don't know them, I think it's also great to again trust ourselves and just to think, what do I associate with a dolphin? Or what animal do I associate with freedom or harmony or intuition? And then just meditating on that. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of channeling the spirits of animals and their positive spirit and how it can support us throughout our lives.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that teaching. That's really, really
It's
beautiful.
yeah, it's so beautiful, and I I think I will reflect a lot on our episode because there have been so many fundamental teachings that can be applied to anything in life,
Mm.
and any transition and any new stage in our life. And because inner work, our entire life is about inner work,
Yeah,
you know, it's all about unlearning and remembering.
totally. Well said.
So it's so great, and I want to remind people once more, you have within you what you need, and
Mhm.
trust yourself and don't second guess yourself, and I hope people are open to incorporating more Ayurvedic practices into their lives to feel that confidence and courage within them to trust, and also having that support throughout transition phases, and to slow down and to actually create the space to reflect. So thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom, and I will make sure I'll put everything in the show notes where people can connect with you, whether it's on Instagram or your amazing soul space. And I will also make sure I link your Ayurvedic center because I'm pretty sure some people want to travel there too. And yeah, Dhyana, thank you so so much for your heartful connection and soulful inspiration. I really loved our conversation. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you, Sarah. It's so amazing to be here. Your wisdom also just shines through. So thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a wrap for today, everyone. Please share this episode with anyone you want to encourage that they have everything within them that they need. Share it with all the mothers to be, and we'll see you next Wednesday.